Hey everyone, John here. So, I've been wanting to talk about this new Disney Channel series, Andi Mack, ever since I've watched the first episode, and I guess now I'm finally getting the chance to do it. It's a new show which I enjoy. It's kind of a, down to earth, slice of life kind of drama comedy show. Um, and the premise of the series is, and I'll spoil this right now, it's something from the first episode, is that this 13-year-old girl, Andy, finds out that the person who she thought was her older sister her whole life is actually her mother, and that her parents are actually her grandparents. The parents, well, the grandparents raised her, and her older sister Bex has, not been around for a lot of her life, and we're wondering why. Okay, so anyway, this episode here, which is titled "Dancing in the Dark," picks up right where the last episode left off. This is the fourth episode of the series. And the last episode left off with Andy finding a photo of this guy who we're believed to be her father. She asks Bex, "Is this my dad?" Because she doesn't know who her dad is. Her mother hasn't told her yet. Her mother, Bex, that is. And she doesn't answer. And that's where the last episode left off. And we're led to believe that either he is the dad or he's somebody important. Because Bex doesn't want to say who he is, despite her claiming that no, it's not the dad. And then she kind of changes the subject by bringing up pizza, which is actually then leads to a very funny line from Andy. Now, basically, then the next scene shows Andy going to the local hangout where her friend Cyrus reveals to her that basically he told his mom about this whole thing with, her older sister actually being, her mom. And his mom is apparently this big gossip, so now everyone in town knows about it, and everyone is staring at her. A kind of funny little moment, but it does create some interesting new conflict in the show, and it's kind of, it keeps kind of building little by little on this whole, kind of big thing where it's like you find out the person you thought was your older sister your whole life is your mom. It's like your whole life is a lie sort of thing. So that's interesting, and I do like how the show has kind of this mild continuity to it. Enough that they do kind of these like recaps at the beginning of each episode, and then at the end of each episode they're like, "Next time on Andi Mack." But it's like it's kind of light continuity. It's not like full blown kind of story arc sort of thing, but it's kind of it's like real life basically, where there's like a little bit of continuity, So that's nice. We could then get this scene where Andy's grandma, who she thought was her mom before, her name is Celia, gets into this confrontation with this nasty neighbor of hers, who's kind of like, "Oh, so I heard about, Bex being Andy's, mom and stuff, and your grandma now." And, she's just trying to get under Celia's skin, so Celia sprays her with a gardening hose. It's a very funny little moment, and it's kind of like, at this point, it occurred to me, like, I'm really starting to like this character, Celia, because she's kind of like this very, at first she comes off this person who's very kind of just stuck up and, just very serious all the time, but we're kind of getting more development for her, kind of showing a more human side to her, kind of feels more like a real person. So that's a nice little thing here. I'm sorry if this is shaking a lot, I'm just, having this propped up on some stuff. Yeah, so because of this incident with the neighbor, her parents have to go away for a few days to somewhere. I don't really know where, and it's not totally explained. I mean, I think it's largely kind of just meant to set up this whole thing where Andy is having a party, which is the main premise of the episode, or, one of the main ones. Yeah, so, Bex is left in charge, and she gives Andy the idea to throw a party. Perhaps not being totally responsible there, but hey, she's still young and she's still learning, but I don't know. If I was in her situation, I would probably try to be a little more responsible, but that's just me. I don't know. Yeah, there is, another really funny joke here with kind of showing kind of Andy and her kind of innocence here where, Bex is like, "Hey, we can do anything now. They're away." And she's like, and Andy's like, "Oh, we could have dinner in front of the TV or two desserts." You know, it's a funny little moment. But despite that, this one not a particularly funny episode. I mean, I think that the last two episodes were more consistently funny, but this one's pretty solid nonetheless. It's kind of just a more enjoyable episode. It has some nice little conflict, some nice, more dramatic moments, and some charm to it. So it's enough that I do call it a good episode. Um, yeah, there's this moment basically where you see Andy has this crush on a guy named Jonah Beck, and he has a girlfriend. So there's this whole moment where, the party's going really well and everyone's having a good time, but then this girl, Jonah Beck's girlfriend, Amber, decides to kind of humiliate Andy in this pretty dramatic and kind of like this harsh moment where Amber kind of just brings up in front of everybody this whole idea of, oh, Andy's got a new dad. Who is the new dad, Andy? And it just like really embarrasses her. It's a pretty strong moment. But then Andy, once again decides to confront Bex and be like, "Look, Bex, just tell me, who is my dad? Who is this guy? Who is my dad?" And she doesn't get the chance to tell her. She doesn't really want to tell her yet. So then Andy gets sent off to bed by her grandfather, who she thought was her father before. They call him Pops. And he ends up having a conversation with Bex. And then we get to the big bombshell that this episode ends on, where basically she's talking to her father about this. That is Bex. And she's like, I just don't know how to tell her about how, the fact that her father doesn't even know who she is. And that's kind of like the first big thing where it's kind of like, oh, okay, so that's why. Because it's like, okay, the father doesn't know who she is. But then Pops is like, oh, he knows. And she's like, how does she know? And he's like, oh, I told him. So this is where the episode ends, and it kind of leaves things interesting because it's something that, okay, Bex clearly didn't want to happen, but then at the same time I'm wondering, like, who is this guy? And I'm kind of thinking, like there's got to be kind of some significance with him, like all this building up to it. Like, I don't know if he was maybe somebody who was like a close friend of theirs, maybe even somebody who Andy knows or knew at one point. But I'm thinking that, like, if for Beck's dad to say something, maybe it was somebody who he knows, someone who he knew well. I mean, for all we know, could have even been somebody who we, the audience, have already met. So, like, I don't know. Although I can't think of anybody who that would be at this point. But I don't know. It definitely is something I want to think about. But yeah, there's definitely going to be some big stuff coming with the show, and I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, good episode. I enjoyed it. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to next week's, and to see where the show goes from here. So I guess that's all I gotta say, and thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.